So now, with my apologies for the delay and my apologies for those who have not yet managed to connect their audio, I'd like to welcome you to today's webinar. Today's webinar with as its objective to present to you the next version of TL Manager, version 5.5. But that's not all there is on the agenda. We have some other speakers who will share a number of very interesting things with you. First, a few logistical matters. We would like to remind you to keep your microphone muted for the duration of the webinar. You can chat with the other participants using the chat function, and make sure that you send your chat to all, chat to everybody. If you have any questions at any point during the webinar, feel very free to put it in the chat. We will try to answer questions through the chat when appropriate at the end of each section, and there will also be a long Q&A agenda point at the end where we hope to go into more close discussion with you. Just to remind you, I am Michael de Boer. Things have changed a little bit since last time. There has been a palace coup, which should not concern you. I used to work for the Director General for Informatics. Today I work for the Director General for Communications Networks, Content and Technology of the European Commission. These two DGs, DG Digit and DG Connect, together manage the Connecting Europe Facilities eSignature building block, which is responsible for TL Manager, as well as the Trusted Listed Browser tool and the DSS open source library. Sorry, we're having a little technical problem here in moving the slides along. Looks like we managed. So, today's webinar, we have the following agenda points. The first one, well, you're in the middle of it. It's the opening done by myself. After this, I will be handing over to myself and give you a quick update of the latest developments in eIDAS land and CEF land. After that, and this is a classic agenda point for these webinars, is Olivier Delos, who will share with you his tips and tricks, the do's and don'ts of managing European trusted lists. After that, I would say the main agenda point of today, the release of TL Manager, as well as a few words on the next version of Trusted List Browser. This will be done by the other Olivier Barret, and his colleague at Novina, both working as contractors for the European Commission, Simon Ghisalberti. Then Olivier Barret will give you a sneak preview of what is to come in 2019 for TL Manager and CEF eSignature more generally. And then we will have a discussion or Q&A, including, if I am not mistaken, a little quiz where we're not going to test you on your knowledge of the eIDAS regulation. We might still do that at some point in the future, but we'd rather like to hear from you what you like about TL Manager and what you would like to have in the future. And all good things must come to an end, so at the very end, I will be closing this webinar. So for the policy update, as you may or may not know, the European Union is currently in a budgetary period, a so-called multi-annual financial framework that ends at the end of 2020, which means that at the moment discussions are in full swing for the budget of the next budgetary period, the next multi-annual financial framework that will be running from 2021 to 2027. In this context, in the summer of last year, the European Commission has proposed a Digital Europe program, a program that would be the first ever purely digital program of the European Union, a program that would include 9.2 billion euros in investment in the fields of high performance computing, that's supercomputers, artificial intelligence, digital skills, and e-government. And we hope that under this last pillar of the Digital Europe program, we expect that under this last pillar of the Digital Europe program, there will be continuity for the work that we have done under the Connecting Europe facility. We do not yet know what form this will exactly take and what the exact budgetary ramifications for that will be. Perhaps we will go from being CEF eSignature to being DEP eSignature. Perhaps we'll have to merge eSignature with cybersecurity. All of this is not known yet, but I can say with reasonable certainty, of course, I cannot prejudge what the legislators, the European Parliament and the Council of the European Union will do, but I can say with reasonable certainty that there will be continuity of what we are doing today in the Connecting Europe Facility program when it comes to trust services and electronic signatures. Now, there is a role for all of us there. The Digital Europe program having to be ratified by the European Parliament, having to be ratified by the Council of the European Union, means that I would like to ask you, if you like what we are doing in the Connecting Europe facility, please tell your family, tell your hairdresser, tell your Prime Minister that you are happy with what we're doing. If, on the other hand, you're not happy with what we're doing, don't tell your family, don't tell your Prime Minister. Let us know so that we can improve and make sure that we have a good Connecting Europe facility program to build on for within the Digital Europe program. A next point is the quality of the trusted lists. For the most part, the trusted lists allow anybody in Europe to reliably establish whether or not a trust service, such as an electronic signature, is indeed a qualified trust service. And Europeans depend on this to be able to establish the legal value of the trust services that they find in front of them. The trusted lists, has been said many times, have constitutive value under the eIDAS regulation. That means that it is of utmost importance for the trust service providers in your countries that the trusted lists continue to be of high quality, that there are as few errors in them as possible. Olivier Delos will be sharing with you what has been going well and what can still be done better when we look at the trusted list in general. So we very much encourage you to keep up the good work and to maintain the high quality of the trusted lists. Next, a point that is not an e-signature point, but is a point related to the sibling field of electronic signatures, electronic identification. The eIDAS framework, as you may or may not know, establishes that member states can notify electronic identification schemes such that other member states will have the obligation to make their online public services accessible to citizens who are in possession of those eID schemes. As we can see at the next slide, an increasing number of member states have notified their eID schemes. Germany was a bit ahead of the pack, and they notified their eID scheme already in 2017, which means that they are the first and also at present the only member state with an eID scheme that must be recognized in all online public services in Europe. We can see there's a number of other eID schemes that have been notified and which will have to be recognized for online public services in later this year. And I have been told, in fact, that with all the eID schemes that have been notified at present, by the end of this year, half of all Europeans should normally be able to access online public services around the European Union with eID schemes in their country. And with that, I will hand over the floor to my colleague Olivier Los with today's do's and don'ts of trusted list management.